I have the graduation song stuck in my head, the Pomp and Circumstance.
Oh,
Getting a little ahead of the game, I guess. Bum, 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 bum.
I like this red shirt.
Okay. Hi.
Oh, I hate to do it. It's 84. Do you mind if I sit in here and cool off?
Oh no, absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely
I
you
know you
can.
have class. I don't want to distract.
No, that's
But
okay.
I'm also afraid I won't make it.
Also, like our class is not very interactive today. I'm just reading them a bunch of stuff.
Oh.
So I actually told Julius he didn't have to be in here. He was like, "Can I go? You just like tell me what I need to read,
Yeah.
and I'll do the Battle of the Band stuff." I was like, "Yes, that's fine."
Yeah, I had asked Wash 7th period if I could sit in there because I didn't want to disrupt he's in Eli's meeting. So
I'm actually so glad that I missed that. The kids are asking me
did it
in.
get moved?
It did get moved. Yeah, it was supposed to
So I
be
guess you didn't get
Monday.
coffee.
I did not get a coffee, which is fine. The kids were asking me about like a potential senior trip or outing
Yeah.
or something, and I was like, yeah, like we'd love to do something. There's some stuff that we've talked about. None of it would be overnight. Nothing would, and we were like tossing around some ideas, and Eli was like private messaging me and was like, when would this be? Because I'm moving at the end of April. I was like, it's definitely gonna be after the end of April. Like, no question. I'm relieved he's moving. I mean, not that he's here a whole lot anyway. Like, he'll be here for graduation, but
Yeah.
they're not moving like super far.
Are they moving within district?
Mm-mm.
Oh, so he's going to go to a different school?
No, he's just, since he's virtual, he's finishing up the year and then just graduating. They're moving to the upstate. So,
See you later.
see ya. I said something in that class earlier about like how there wouldn't be. I was kind of joking, but I was like, "Oh, there's no students that I don't enjoy, or that I would, no seniors that I won't miss."
Right.
And Corey was in here, and he was like, "We know that's not true."
Isaiah, are you excited for spring break? That's fantastic news. Are you going to be doing anything fun or exciting?
Make life count.
Oh, okay. That sounds nice.
You might want to turn your desk around for now because you'll need to look at this.
Oh, and I might get out of the way so that way
Oh, you're fine.
it's not my whole head there.
Corey just turned that desk around earlier so he could draw. I'm waiting on some folks to get in this room. That water fountain is possessed.
Yeah.
Hello.
I saw that now.
Hello.
Well,
And, like,
surprise,
I'm like,
surprise.
Like everyone's allowed to take a day, but
Yeah.
no one's shocked it's a Friday.
Not at all. Marilyn told me that she saw Connor at Target one day, and she was gonna go talk to him, but she was like, "Oh, he was with his wife and baby," and I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't know what she did.
Because we have a candidate applying into your park middle who I feel like she mentioned it in a text.
Really?
Yeah, for social studies.
Oh, Oh,
Jason.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. You said that name the other day, and it rung a bell with me. That must be why. Yeah, from what I remember, he seemed like kind of like the kind of guy you would expect to be both a social studies teacher and a gym coach,
Sure.
and like probably a Republican, but seemed like nice and funny.
Yeah.
My camera's been goofy today.
Hi, Kayla. Kayla's in this class.
Kayla is in this class.
Hello.
Hello. Is that Kinsey? Hi,
That's- yep.
Kinsey. Oh, this is Kinsey.
Yeah.
I know.
Who else would be on a horse?
I was gonna change my camera so you guys could see. We just have Isaiah and Miss Kathan in here today.
Oh. What a squad.
What a squad!
Isaiah's over there, I'm over here.
And there's me.
Wait, I thought Julius was in this class.
He is in this class, but he is doing some Battle of the Band prep today. So I told him what he needed to do for me and let him go. I didn't take attendance last period. Oop.
Well then.
I
Isaiah,
know.
what's your punishment
I'm
day?
so bad about it.
I feel like her punishment should be she gets the next 2 days off. She's
I
not
think
allowed to come to
that's
work.
I think that's more than fair. Okay, Julius is technically here. Kayla, no Madison yet. Madison's often a little late. So maybe she'll show up. All right. I'm going to share my screen with you. We have MLA citation stuff today, so very exciting. All of this stuff is under week 5, part 1, even though this is neither our 5th week nor a part of a week. We're at the end, but it's fine. So the first thing we're going to do is watch this little video. It's about 8 minutes about formatting and parenthetical citations. You guys can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Hi class, in this lecture I'm going to be talking about MLA formatting and the works cited page for your first essay. So the first thing I want to show you is that you have access to Microsoft Office right here from the home page.
You don't need
So if
that.
you click there, you'll probably need to sign in and then just click on Word
Word.
and blank
We don't do that.
document. So hopefully this is just a refresher from 101, but when I am always starting a Word document, I go ahead and check all the formatting. So looking at the,
Obviously, we don't have Microsoft Word. We're Mac people, but it should be the same in Pages and pretty much the same in Google Docs.
layout, we'll look at the margins, make sure it's normal, good to go there.
Oh, God, I'm
The
trapped.
next thing we want to do is change it to the 12-point font. And I'm fine with any legible font type. Most people use Times New Roman, but I'm not really particular about that. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and set the spacing for double spacing. So click here and double space, we're good to go. And then we're going to add the page numbers with your last name before. So what we'll do is insert.
This is actually handy.
Page numbers. We go upper right hand. This marks the different page numbers. So all you need to do is type your last name before the hashtag. So we'll pretend that this is for
It doesn't show up as a hashtag for you
Tyler.
guys.
So Tyler space. And we're good to go. We can go back home and start putting that in. So let's pretend Rose Tyler, and we'll put in my name, the
Don't forget my name.
class.
You don't have to have
and
that
then
section
put
number
the
either.
date. So we'll say it's the 23rd of June, 2020. Then what we'll do is go ahead and put in our title. So what we want to do for that is
What we want to do
align
for
the
she
middle.
should read like
Let's pretend that we're
sleep
writing
stories.
our essay on A&P. So maybe we say something like Sammy's decision A and P. And we go back over to the left. We indent our paragraph and we start writing.
Nice.
Okay, so one of the things that we need to do now is work on our works cited page. So what we're going to do is I'm going to insert a page break, and
don't think
remember
you can do
that
that on
your
Pages.
title,
Maybe you
works
can.
cited, is going to be centered. So just FYI, for this particular essay, it's going to say works cited because the only thing you're going to cite is the reading from the textbook. you're not going to cite any secondary sources because you're not allowed to have any for this particular essay.
Accurate.
So going here and go back to our home
Is that Jay and
page,
Silent Bob?
and we have a lot of MLA information at your disposal here. So when you scroll down, you can see MLA
Ugh,
writing
it's so
instructions,
ugly.
but
I
MLA
just
formatting.
hate D2L.
And it says right here, works cited page with examples from the textbook. So this particular document
Look at her
has
tabs.
an
Grateful Dead
example
Live
for
and
how to
Outlander
cite a
story.
poem using our textbook,
What's she
the
got
short
going
story,
on?
and the play that we will read. So this actually has the story that I'm pretending to write my paper about. So I'm just going to copy that and post that onto the Word document. Okay, so you can see here that the formatting is incorrect. You should know from looking here that you have to do the hanging indent, which means the first line is left justified and the second and any following lines are indented. So coming back here, what we're going to want to do, plus if you click here, you can see it's a different font and a different size. That's not good. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight that. We will change it back to the font we were using for the rest of our essay, and we'll change the size to be 12. We are going to highlight this and bring it back to the left. We'll see if we can do that.
I think this is
By
kind of a
clicking
lot
that
of
on my
info
list.
that y'all probably already know.
So once we have that over there, we're going to need to format the paragraph. And we do that by right-clicking on the second and any additional lines, click on paragraph, and then go to line spacing. Double and special hanging. And there it is. That's what your
Beautiful.
works cited page will look like. We've got the author, period, the short story title in quotation marks, and the name of our textbook in italics. All right, going back up here, one additional thing I want to talk about is when you are doing your in-text citations, make sure that you remember that you have to introduce all your quotes. So let's
This is
say
important.
you want to cite this particular line from the story. I read
Isn't
that
that-
again and the customer
not
starts
safe to
giving me
drink out
how
of the
to
water
turn
fountain
this
part, is
cash
it?
register
Isn't it like dirty and
watchers.
gross? Oh, well.
So
It was
let's
just
say
Aya.
we want to have this sentence in our paper. The very first thing we're going to need to do is introduce that. You can do that by having the author's name or the speaker in the introduction. So let's say Sammy thinks. And then we have our quote. We want it to be text only. Of course, I keep forgetting that it needs to be like this. Again, just looking here, we would Sammy thinks, comma. We could also write something like Updike writes, as long as it has the comma there. Now what we need to do is, this is the period that exists in the story, but that's not the end of our sentence. Our sentence ends after the citation. So what we're going to do is erase that ender quote and then put the author and page number as the citation and then a period at the end. Then we continue writing. So the most important thing is just to remember that you have to have a tag phrase in here, and you also need
Signal
to
phrase.
drop that last period inside your quote and have your citation and put a period at the end. So I hope that gives you a lot of help. If you have other questions, you have a lot of things at your disposal on the content page under the writing instructions and MLA module. There's information about all the different parts of the essay. There's information, further details about MLA formatting, examples of an MLA formatted paper, all kinds of different information on
I feel like she said what she needs to say. Before we move on, I was going to tell you, Miss Cathan, I was telling them the other day that in the beginning of May, we're either going to watch Fences by August Wilson or Hamilton. And Kinsey was all like, absolutely Hamilton, let's do it. Julius Kane, who is not here to defend himself, said, not Hamilton, watch whatever the other thing is. And I was like, you don't like Hamilton? He said, I've never seen it, but I've seen enough clips in Miss Cathan's class to where I know I don't like it.
Oh, so we haven't watched any of it. We listened to the soundtrack.
Okay, maybe that's what he
And to
meant.
be fair, like, we listened to some of like the less exciting ones, the songs like from the King's perspective. So
Yeah,
they're like outliers from the rest of the group because they're not like cool and rap.
Yeah.
And, like,
well,
stuff.
maybe in context he'll like it better.
think
I
that
was
he
like,
will. It's
I-
fun when you do. Well, I'll have words with that.
I was like, you haven't even been in her class in years. Like,
Yeah, really
what are you-
sorry.
I guess so. Okay, we're just going to quickly look through these few things. I have this downloaded, so I'm just going to open that one up. Whoop.
Thank you, Kayla.
Oh, Jonathan Groff is in it?
Jonathan Groff is in it.
He's the king.
I didn't know.
He's the king.
He's in Mindhunter.
Yes, he is.
I love Mindhunter.
Frozen. Oh.
Is anybody else I would know in it?
Okay, you know, in Co-op,
Yeah.
the woman who sings Brown and the Bees.
Oh, yeah.
She's the lead.
Oh, okay. Well, my goodness, she knows John Mulaney.
You have or have not seen Moana.
I love Moana. Yeah.
Okay. The singing voice of Moana's father is George Washington.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the same guy who did the music for Moana is Hamilton himself. So.
And then
Oh.
the one who played Maui surprisingly was Dwayne Johnson.
I know. I love him.
When
Do you
so rock.
do you follow him on social media? He's so great. Like his cheat meals are insane. Like more food than I could eat in a week.
Taylor,
But
you're absolutely right. He is Kristoff.
he is Kristoff, and Kristoff is one of the better male leads in a Disney movie in quite some time.
Who is Olaf?
Josh Gad was Olaf, right?
Mhm.
Which like if you did you see the remake of Beauty and the Beast?
Yes.
He's the guy that was LeFou.
Oh, the clock.
No.
No,
Okay.
Gaston's
Gaston's
little
Oh,
sidekick
okay.
guy.
That like kind of dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we've written essays before. Kinsey is the only person who was not in 101, and I know that Kinsey knows how to write an essay, so I'm not super worried. Oh, Michael would name his car Olaf. That's
I love-
adorable.
I love that.
Is it white?
Yeah.
Nice. That's adorable. Okay, so in your body paragraphs, obviously you have to provide support by using quotations. And in this essay, the only thing you need to quote is the story itself. We're not using outside sources, which in that last video where the woman with the sleepy voice was talking, she said that you could put work cited because you're only doing one work. As a rule of thumb, you need at least one quotation per body paragraph. And you need to quote from the text in every body paragraph. Like you could have more than one quote in a body paragraph, but you have to have at least one. In literary analysis essays, quotations usually come from 3 or 4 usually come in. You usually like have 2 or 3 sentences before you are going to use the quote. And we kind of went through the format of what a body paragraph looks like yesterday. You establish your point, you give the background summary and information, then you introduce your quotation with some sort of signal phrase like Sammy says, and then you put your quote. Then you analyze your quotation, explain why you used it, what the point of it was, and then tie that back to your thesis. Like I said yesterday, this is a pretty formulaic way to write essays, but if you can find a formula that works, stick with it. For block quotations, and I know that we've been through this before, but you guys don't usually use block quotations. And honestly, I discourage them because they have weird formatting. And if you're using a block quotation, that's a lot of text. And in such a short essay, which maybe 800 words doesn't sound like a lot, or maybe it does sound like a lot, but it's really not. using that much quotation is going to be pretty heavy. Like you don't want the quotations to overpower what you're saying. But if you're going to, if a block quotation takes up more than 4 lines in length when you're typing it out, and if you do that, then you introduce the quote like Sammy says, or Updike writes, or whatever, comma. But this time you don't use a comma, you use a colon, and then you hit enter, and then you indent the entire passage 5 spaces. You can type out the full passage that you're quoting, cite it, and hit the enter again, and that'll return you to the original margin. So all of the block quote is kind of set apart from everything else, and it looks like a block, which is why they call it a block quotation. Never begin or end a paragraph with a block quotation, because you do need to introduce it and analyze it. Of course, anytime. It's so cold. I know. Oria Jordan was like, you're always so cold because you always wear dresses. I was like, I'm always so cold because it's literally 66 degrees in my classroom. It has nothing to do with what I'm wearing. Yeah. So here's an example of what a block quote looks like. Obviously, that's more than 4 lines of text. And it's got this introduction. He reveals his sympathy for Willie when he stands up to Biff's questioning of Willie's life, dreams, and lack of self-knowledge, and asserts to them all, colon. And you'll also notice this is formatted super differently than any other quotes you're going to use, because you don't actually have quotation marks around it. Since it's set apart, you don't need them. And you have the period at the end of the sentence rather than after the citation. And then it goes back into the rest of the paragraph. So some more about introducing quotes. When you quote, always make sure to introduce the quotes. Don't just drop a quotation into a paragraph. You do need a smooth transition into the quotation in order to indicate that you're quoting and why you're quoting. So this is an example of what not to do, this first one. Willie is a man who is always looking to the past, in quotes. Oh, Ben, that's good to hear, because sometimes I'm afraid that I'm not teaching them the right kind of, Ben, how should I teach them? This use of the quotation doesn't really work because it's confusing. A better way to do that and introduce the quote, Willie is a man who's always looking to the past. Miller shows this tendency quite clearly when he has Willie slip into the past in his own mind. During one of these episodes, Willie reenacts a meeting with his wealthy brother Ben and reveals his own insecurities by asserting, oh, Ben, that's good to hear, because sometimes I'm afraid that I'm not teaching them the right kind of, Ben, how should I teach them? So that's introduced really well and smoothly. This is a really handy dandy list of verbs that you can use to introduce your quotations. These signals that you can include in a signal phrase. They're basically just like really solid verbs that are more than just says. So if you introduce your quotation with a signal phrase, which tells your readers you're going to quote or paraphrase something, then you need to place a comma before the quotation. So like in this example, in an attempt to alleviate his gnawing sense of guilt, Clark declared, comma, quote, I stole the cookie. 3 exceptions to this rule. When you use a signal phrase followed by the word that, you don't place a comma before the quotation. So for example, feeling the need to refute the paranoia of the other panel members, Chambers asserted that, no comma, quote, our reptilian overlords will not enslave us. They will become our protectors. When you use a complete sentence to introduce a quotation, then you place a colon before the quotation. So our example here, one prominent Hawthorne critic, Lynn Dorset, provides a clear explanation of this symbol, colon, face pink ribbon. Oh, I know what they're referencing, Young Goodman Brown. Face pink ribbon represents the mixture of purity, blah, blah, blah. End quote, citation, punctuation. The last exception is when you don't use a signal phrase before a quotation, but instead integrate the quotation directly into the flow of the sentence, then you don't need punctuation. So the example here is, though he says that Cleopatra is history's undisputed queen of the Nile, Wooden still takes a very bleak view of her reign and profligate legacy. So any way you introduce your quote, just remember that a quote can't stand alone as its own sentence. Closing punctuation. In this class, you follow a quotation with a parenthetical reference. We know that, such as the page number reference. So your comma, period, colon, or semicolon has to go after the parenthetical reference, not inside the quotation marks. Which just at the end here, you can see it closes the quote and then has 514 in the parentheses and then the period. That's one that really is hard for people to like really get sunk into their brains. Here's our one exception. There's always an exception. If a quotation includes a question mark or an exclamation point, the question mark or exclamation point remains inside the quotation marks and a period appears at the end of the sentence, which is wild. And it seems like it'd be wrong, but it's not, because you've got two ending punctuation marks. Like the question inside the quote has a question mark, but then the whole thing is a sentence. So it also needs a period. Isn't that weird? Quotations within quotations rule. When you're quoting a passage that already contains quotation marks, you use single quotation marks within your own regular quotation marks to indicate this punctuation. So our example here, Jimmy thought, comma, regular quotation marks, they were signed, singular quotation marks, love Martha, but he understood, end quotation marks, citation, period. It's a weird one, but. So if you're adding something or changing something or deleting something from a quote, if you are adding information, then the added information needs to be inside brackets. The reason that you would add information in the example that they have here about Merriweather, the original quote probably says something like his confused response to these dying words, and it, because of the context of the original quote, you would know who he is and you'd know that it meant of his grandfather. But if you're taking the quote out of context, you don't have that information, so you need to include it. And then you just put that information in brackets. If you're taking something out of the quotation, like if it's just too long, or if you need something from the beginning of the sentence and something from the end, but you don't need the middle stuff, then you'll just do an ellipsis inside of brackets. Lastly, what goes in those parentheses? If you use the author in the signal phrase, then you can just put the page number, like Updike writes, his face was dark and gray, 238. If you don't use the author in the signal phrase, use the author and page number. So like Sammy that day had a face that was dark and gray, Updike 238. I think we know that already. Okay. MLA in a nutshell. I'm going to zoom in here. This is something that I would recommend you guys, like after you write your essay, I recommend you kind of compare it to this and make sure that you've done all this stuff. Double space with a legible font, 12-point font, 1-inch margins on all sides, a header with your last name and page number, quotation marks around the story title, making sure that you're writing in present tense, no contractions, write out the words, third person. We didn't really talk about this one, and this is just like a general rule. I don't think this is even specifically MLA, but if you're writing numbers, the rule is actually if you write out words 1 to 10, you write out the numbers in words. Anything above 10, you just write the numbers. But this is saying to do that. Guys, don't worry about it. I'm not going to count off for that. It's silly. And this is just showing you the first page format, and it's got an example, which is great, of what it should look like. So you can kind of hold that up against your paper and make sure you're doing it correctly. And then the last thing is just sort of a short example of a works cited page. Which those of you who are in 101 last semester, you had all those resources about works cited pages and how to format them and everything. If you wind up confused about how to cite it, just ask me. Since this is only one thing that you're citing, I don't think you'll have many issues, but that's basically what a works cited page should look like. And I think that's it. Just remember that, again, this is not really relevant for this particular essay since you're only citing one source, but if you're citing more than one source, your sources need to be in alphabetical order. And I think that's it. Any questions about that stuff?
Oh man.
Okay. So Monday is, I think, the last day that we're going to have that kind of stuff to do. And it's not even, we're like moving into drama on Monday. And so we'll have a thing to read and a short video to watch. And then next week we'll start reading this short play called Trifles. And that'll be fun. All right, I'm going to let you virtual folks go. And I hope you'll have a great weekend. And I'll see you Monday.
See you Monday.